I got a new nervous system for my home studio. When I first picked up the guitar again in 2009, I wasn't sure how much time I'd have to spend with it. So to interface with my PC, I got the $90 Line 6 tone port UX1. But with almost a decade passing, an EP under my belt, and a better understanding of home recording, it was time to upgrade. I'll go through how I came to my decision to go with the Focusrite Scarlett 6i6 and how I integrated it into my setup. I will start off by saying that there are a lot of audio interfaces on the market these days. After getting over the initial shock on the number of options, I started thinking through what was really necessary for me. I narrowed the list down to the following: phantom power, a high-Z input for guitars, more than one set of outputs, USB 3.0, and the hope of multiple headphone outputs. The last one, though, was more of a nice to have than a true requirement. I have a set of DIY desktop racks, so I wanted it to be rack mounted as well. All that, and I wanted under $100. Okay, for budget I knew it was going to be more, but I started with an unlimited budget just to see what was out there with my desired feature set. My first surprise was that there really wasn't that many USB 3.0 interfaces on the market yet, especially under the $500 rough budget I ended up setting. One particular interface that I was seriously looking at, unfortunately, seemed to have some serious issues with the Windows 10 drivers and wasn't rack mounted. My focus then turned to the Behringer Euphoria UMC 1820, as it ticked all the marks except USB 3.0. But by this time I had come to grips that it would be USB 2.0 interface. With research, I didn't find any real negative feedback, but there really wasn't much feedback at all, which was strange. There was a couple of unboxing videos on YouTube, but nothing of people actually using it. In the end, I crossed it off my list because there wasn't software support for routing the different connections within the device. That feature wasn't on my original list, but based on my research, I felt it was an important addition for a central device that needed to be flexible. It was during my research I ended up seeing a lot of positive feedback for Focusrite products, especially from people who did streaming. I know, streaming might seem a bit silly, but I think that at least some portion of that will be important for music in the coming years, especially for smaller independent musicians, so the brand grabbed my attention. Because of that, I found the 6i6 interface, which has two combination high-Z XLR line inputs with phantom power on the front. It also came with 2 headphone jacks. It has a nice master volume knob as well to make it easy to control. On the back are 2 more line inputs. I will be hooking those up to my patch bay once I get the cables I need. The back also has 4 line outputs, 2 of which I'm using for my powered studio monitors, and I plan on using my patch bay for the other 2 so I can possibly make use of some outboard gear. I don't have any currently, so it isn't too important yet. It also has MIDI in and out, but right now I only have a 25 key MIDI controller, and that is hooked directly into my PC via USB. Lastly, it has the PDIF in and out, but without gear this will also be unused for the moment. As you can see, this interface has plenty of growth potentials for my studio setup. Since I bought this online, I hadn't been able to actually handle the device. Once I had it in my hands, I've been very impressed. It just feels very solid, and the rubber feet are more like strips, so there is no slipping when switching out cables. Getting the 6i6 into my setup ended up being pretty easy for me. I started with the driver install from Focusrite.com, plugged into the wall, and hooked up the USB cable to my PC. A quick power up and I was on my way. One issue I did run into was that the software needs to be installed to your C drive. I have a drive for my OS, which is on C, a drive for my programs, which is on D. First fired up the software, it would not find my device, even though the install was successful. After some searching, I did discover that the software has to be on the C drive, and once I did that, everything worked perfectly. With that settled, I connected my studio monitors, plugged in my guitar to input 1, my headphones into the first jack, and just like that, I was using the Scarlett 6i6 as a sound card for my PC. A quick trip to my configuration in my DAW, which is Reaper, allowed me to select the 6i6 as the device, and I was able to get signal to the tracks for recording. Even though I plugged in my guitar to input 1, it is still necessary to use the software to switch it over to the high-Z input. This can be done in the device settings sections by clicking on the INST button for whichever input you want to use. This section is also where you can pad the input, set up the sample rate, and if you want to sync clock source to a PDIF device. Phantom power, though, is done from the front of the interface and does affect both input 1 and 2, though it only seems to be if it is XLR input. In the mixing and routing section of the software, you can create paths to move the signal between the inputs and outputs. I'll save the details for a later video, as this is an area I haven't delved into much at all. But they provide some presets which you can get started. You can also mute the outputs from the UI, but again, I'm not using this at all right now since the master volume is easily accessible. The last feature that I am very interested in but haven't researched is how to create custom mixes for the individual headphone outputs. This, though, seems to be something that is more a function from the DAW. I'll save that for another video, so stick around if that would be of interest. So there you go. A quick summary of how I came to choose the Focusrite Scarlett 6i6 and how I set it up within my home studio. Hopefully that can be of some use to you, and I look forward to getting deeper into the functions of this audio interface in the future. I'll see you in the next one.